Have you ever noticed how some people can control your entire day without touching you, without threatening you, without even raising their voice? One comment, one look, one text message, one opinion, and suddenly your mood changes. Your confidence disappears. Your decisions change. Your energy drops. And the most dangerous part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they are living their own life. But secretly, their emotions are being controlled by everyone around them. Their boss controls how they feel. Their friends control how they act. Social media controls how they think. Strangers control how they see themselves. And little by little, they lose themselves. Not in one day, not in one year, but slowly, quietly, until one morning they wake up and realize they don't even know who they are anymore. Because every important decision in their life was made out of fear of what other people might think. And if you're not careful, the same thing can happen to you. Because the greatest prison in the world is not made of steel. It is made of approval. And today, we're going to talk about the one thing that can break those chains. Self-respect, not confidence, not motivation, not success, self-respect. The power that makes people stop controlling you. The power that makes you emotionally free. The power that changes everything. And once you understand it, you will never see yourself the same way again. Imagine this. A young man walks into work. He has ideas, dreams, potential, but he has one problem. He wants everyone to like him. So whenever someone asks him for a favor, he says yes. Even when he's tired, even when he's busy, even when he doesn't want to. His manager gives him extra work. He accepts. His co-workers dump responsibilities on him. He accepts. His friends cancel plans at the last minute. He says, "It's okay." Someone disrespects him. He laughs it off. Someone crosses his boundaries. He stays silent, day after day, year after year. He becomes the person everyone depends on. But strangely, the more he sacrifices himself, the less people respect him. Why? Because human psychology is strange. People don't respect you because you give away everything. They respect you when they know you value yourself. Think about that. Many people spend years trying to earn respect from others, but they never ask a more important question: do I respect myself? Because if you don't respect yourself, other people can feel it. They may not say it, but they can feel it in the way you talk, in the way you apologize for things that aren't your fault, in the way you constantly seek validation, in the way you change your personality depending on who you're around. People can sense when someone is disconnected from their own worth. And unfortunately, the world often treats you the way you teach it to treat you. Let that sink in. The world watches what you tolerate, not what you wish, not what you hope, not what you secretly dream about. What you tolerate. If you tolerate disrespect, you receive more disrespect. If you tolerate manipulation, you receive more manipulation. If you tolerate being ignored, you receive more neglect. Because every time you accept poor treatment, you send a silent message. This is okay, and people believe you. One of the saddest things in life is watching good people become prisoners of other people's opinions. Maybe you've seen it, or maybe you've lived it. Someone wants to start a business, but they're afraid of criticism. Someone wants to speak English confidently, but they're afraid of making mistakes. Someone wants to express their true personality, but they're afraid of being judged. So they stay small, not because they lack ability, because they lack permission. And they're waiting for the world to give it to them, but the world rarely does. The truth is, Many people will never approve of your growth because your growth makes them uncomfortable. Your confidence reminds them of their insecurity. Your ambition reminds them of their excuses. Your discipline reminds them of their laziness. And your self-respect reminds them of the boundaries they never had the courage to create. That's why one of the most powerful moments in life happens when you stop asking for permission. When you stop asking, "Is it okay if I become who I want to be?" and start saying, "This is who I am becoming." There is a story that perfectly explains this. Years ago, a teacher placed a $100 bill in front of his students. He asked a simple question, "Who wants this?" Every hand went up. Then he crumpled the bill. He stepped on it, threw it on the floor, made it dirty. Then he held it up again. "Who still wants it?" Every hand remained raised. The teacher smiled, because the lesson was simple. The value never changed. No matter what happened to the bill. Now think about your own life. How many people have treated you badly? How many times have you failed? How many mistakes have you made? How many embarrassing moments still haunt your mind? And somewhere along the way, did you start believing those experiences reduced your value? Because they didn't, your value did not disappear because someone rejected you. Your value did not disappear because someone criticized you. Your value did not disappear because someone left you. Your value did not disappear because you made mistakes. The problem is that many people hand their self-worth to other people and then act surprised when it gets damaged. Imagine giving a stranger the keys to your house. Sounds crazy, right? Yet every day people hand strangers the keys to their emotions. One negative comment ruins their week. One criticism destroys their confidence. One rejection changes their identity. Why? Because they allowed someone else's opinion to become more important than their own. And that's where control begins. Control does not start with chains, it starts with dependence. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's approval, they gain power over you. The moment your confidence depends on compliments, they gain power over you. The moment your identity depends on acceptance, they gain power over you. And many people spend their entire lives trapped in this invisible prison, always performing, always pleasing, always adjusting, always pretending, never free. But here's something most people never realize. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They are rarely the most aggressive, rarely the most dominant. The strongest people are often the calmest, because they have nothing to prove. Think about that. When a tree has deep roots, it doesn't panic when the wind arrives, when a mountain stands tall. It doesn't argue with the storm. And when a person truly respects themselves, they stop reacting to every opinion, because not every opinion deserves a response. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your energy. One of the biggest signs of emotional maturity is realizing that you do not have to attend every argument you're invited to. Imagine how much energy people waste every day, defending themselves, explaining themselves, justifying themselves, trying to convince people who already decided not to understand them. It's exhausting, and it's unnecessary, because sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is power. The lion does not turn around every time a dog barks, and neither should you. Now, don't misunderstand this. Self-respect is not arrogance. Self-respect is not thinking you're better than others. Self-respect is not becoming cold or selfish. Real self-respect is much deeper. It is knowing your worth without needing to announce it. It is protecting your peace without feeling guilty. It is setting boundaries without explaining them 100 times. It is walking away from disrespect without seeking revenge. It is choosing dignity over drama. And in a world addicted to attention, that kind of strength is rare, very rare. Because most people are trained from childhood to seek approval. Good grades, good behavior, good image, good reputation. We become experts at pleasing others. But nobody teaches us how to protect ourselves. Nobody teaches us that saying no is sometimes an act of self-love. Nobody teaches us that disappointing others can be necessary for personal growth. Nobody teaches us that boundaries are not walls. They are doors, and you decide who enters. Think about the people who constantly drain your energy. The people who only call when they need something. The people who criticize everything you do. The people who make you feel smaller every time you're around them. Why do they still have access to your mind? Why do they still influence your emotions? Why do they still occupy space inside your head? Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is not fighting harder, it's letting go. And that sounds simple, but emotionally, it can be one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Because humans are attached to familiarity, even when familiarity hurts. People stay in toxic friendships, toxic relationships, toxic environments, not because they're happy, because they're comfortable. And comfort can be dangerous, because comfort often disguises itself as safety. But there is a difference. A cage can feel safe and still be a cage. The question is, what invisible cages are controlling your life right now? Maybe it's the cage of needing everyone to like you. Maybe it's the cage of avoiding conflict at any cost. Maybe it's the cage of constantly explaining yourself. Or maybe it's the cage of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of standing alone. And here's the painful truth. Many people never escape these cages, not because the door is locked, because they become comfortable inside. They decorate the cage. They justify the cage. They build their identity around the cage until freedom starts to look frightening. And that's where life becomes dangerous, because growth almost always begins where comfort ends. Think about the moments that changed your life. The moments you became stronger, more confident, more mature. Were they comfortable? Probably not. Most transformations begin with discomfort. A difficult conversation, a painful decision, a lonely season. A moment when you finally say, no more shrinking, no more pretending, no more sacrificing your self-respect just to keep other people comfortable. And when that moment comes, something powerful happens. You stop chasing validation, and you start building character. Because there is a huge difference between being liked and being respected. Many people confuse the two. They are not the same. A person can be liked and still be disrespected. A person can be popular and still be manipulated. A person can be surrounded by people and still have no real power over their own life. Respect operates differently. Respect begins when people know your boundaries exist. Respect begins when your words have weight. Respect begins when your actions match your standards. Respect begins when you stop negotiating your worth. Look carefully at people who command respect, not fear. Respect. They don't beg. They don't chase. They don't constantly prove themselves. They simply know who they are. And because they know who they are, other people feel it. Identity is powerful. The world responds differently when you walk with certainty, not arrogance. Certainty. Imagine two people entering the same room. One enters looking for approval. The other enters with self-respect. The first person constantly scans the room. Do they like me? What do they think about me? Am I saying the right thing? Am I enough? Their energy becomes nervous, unstable, dependent. The second person enters differently. They are respectful, kind, open, but they are not desperate. Their self-worth is already established before they enter the room. And people feel that immediately, because confidence is not loud. Confidence is emotional independence. The ability to remain yourself even when others disagree. The ability to remain calm when others criticize. The ability to remain grounded when others doubt you. And that ability changes everything. Let me tell you about something that happens every day. A person posts a photo online. For a few minutes, they feel happy. Then they check for likes. Then again, then again, then again. Why? Because they are no longer seeking expression. They are seeking validation. And validation is addictive. The problem with external validation is that it never lasts. Today's praise becomes tomorrow's expectation. Today's approval becomes tomorrow's anxiety. You constantly need another dose, another compliment, another sign, another confirmation. But self-respect works differently. Self-respect creates internal stability. You appreciate praise, but you don't depend on it. You welcome support, but you don't require it. You enjoy recognition, but you don't build your identity around it. That is freedom. And freedom is one of the rarest things in modern life, because everywhere you look, someone is trying to influence you. Advertisements, algorithms, opinions, trends, social pressure. People telling you what success should look like, what beauty should look like, what happiness should look like, who you should become, how you should live. And if you're not careful, you can spend years climbing a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. One day, you wake up exhausted, successful perhaps, but empty, because you spent your entire life becoming what others wanted, not what you wanted. That realization can be heartbreaking. Imagine reaching the top of a mountain, only to discover it wasn't your mountain. Imagine winning a race, only to realize you never wanted to run it. This happens more often than people think. A person chooses a career because their family approves. A person stays in a relationship because society expects it. A person hides their dreams because they fear criticism. Years pass, then decades. And one question begins haunting them. What would have happened if I had been brave enough to be myself? That question is painful because it can never be answered. Regret is heavy, heavier than failure. Failure teaches, regret lingers. Failure says, at least you tried. Regret whispers, you never did. That's why self-respect matters so much, because self-respect gives you permission to live honestly, not perfectly honestly. And there's a difference. An honest life is not always easy. Sometimes people misunderstand you. Sometimes people leave. Sometimes people disagree. Sometimes you disappoint others. But when you respect yourself, you stop fearing those outcomes as much, because losing approval is painful. But losing yourself is worse. Far worse. There's another lesson that most people learn too late. Not everyone deserves access to you. Read that again. Not everyone deserves access to you. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your emotional space is valuable. Yet many people give these things away for free. To people who don't appreciate them, to people who abuse them, to people who drain them, and then they wonder why they feel exhausted. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every toxic relationship adds a stone. Every unresolved resentment adds a stone. Every person-pleasing habit adds a stone. Every fear adds a stone. At first, it's manageable. Then heavier, then heavier. Then one day, you can barely move. and you're wondering why life feels difficult, the answer isn't always to become stronger. Sometimes the answer is to put the stones down, to release what was never yours to carry, to stop carrying other people's expectations, other people's projections, other people's insecurities, other people's opinions, because many of the things stressing you today are not actually your burden. They belong to someone else, and self-respect is knowing the difference. Here's something fascinating about human psychology. People often test boundaries. Not always intentionally, but they do. A coworker asks for a little more. A friend asks for another favor. Someone interrupts your time. Someone ignores your needs. Someone pushes slightly further, then slightly further. And if no boundary appears, they keep going. This is why boundaries matter. Not because you're trying to control others, because you're teaching others how to treat you. A boundary says, I respect myself enough to protect what matters. And healthy people respect that. Unhealthy people often resist it. Pay attention to that. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries are usually the first people who complain when you create them. Suddenly you're called selfish. Suddenly you're called difficult. Suddenly you're called distant. But in reality, you're simply no longer available for exploitation. And that can make some people uncomfortable. That's okay. Growth often makes people uncomfortable, especially those who preferred the old version of you, the version that never said no, the version that tolerated everything, the version that abandoned themselves to make everyone else happy. But here's the question. How much has that version of you cost? How much peace? How much confidence? How much time? How many opportunities? How many dreams? Because every time you betray yourself, something inside remembers. You may smile externally, but internally, your self-trust weakens. And self-trust is everything. Think about it. How can you trust yourself if you constantly ignore your own needs? How can you trust yourself if you repeatedly abandon your values? How can you trust yourself if you always choose approval over authenticity? Eventually, your mind begins to doubt you. Your spirit begins to doubt you. Your confidence begins to fade, not because you're incapable, because you've stopped standing beside yourself. And that is why self-respect is not selfish. It is the foundation of a healthy life. Because when you respect yourself, you keep promises to yourself. When you respect yourself, your words mean something. When you respect yourself, you stop negotiating your standards. And when your standards rise, your life changes, slowly at first, then dramatically. But before that transformation happens, there is one difficult stage almost everyone must face. A stage that most people try desperately to avoid, and it is called loneliness. Not permanent loneliness, temporary loneliness. The loneliness that appears when you outgrow old patterns. The loneliness that appears when you stop people-pleasing. The loneliness that appears when you begin choosing yourself, and this stage can feel terrifying. Because humans are wired for connection. We want belonging, acceptance, community, love. So when some relationships fall away, it hurts. It really hurts. But what many people don't realize is that loneliness is often the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And sometimes, the price of becoming yourself is disappointing the people who only loved the version of you they could control. That sentence hurts because it's true. Some people don't actually want the best version of you. They want the most convenient version of you, the version that never challenges them, the version that never says no, the version that never changes, the version they can predict, control. That's what many relationships quietly revolve around. Not love, not respect, control. And control is often disguised as concern. Why are you changing? You've become different. You think you're better than us now, at first? Those words sound harmless. But look deeper. Sometimes those questions are not about your well-being. They're about their comfort. Because your growth forces people to confront their own stagnation. Your discipline reminds them of their excuses. Your confidence reminds them of their fears. Your self-respect reminds them of the boundaries they never built. And instead of growing alongside you, some people will try to pull you back down. Not because they hate you, because your evolution makes them uncomfortable. This is one of the hardest lessons of adulthood. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. Some people only support your journey as long as it doesn't surpass theirs. That's why you must learn something powerful. You cannot build your future using other people's expectations as your blueprint. You must build it from your values, your vision, your purpose. Otherwise, you'll spend your life becoming someone else's idea of success. And there is nothing more tragic than living a life that doesn't belong to you. Imagine standing in front of a mirror 20 years from now. Your hair is different. Your face has changed, time has moved forward, and the person looking back asks one question: did you live your life, or did you live theirs? That question has the power to shake a person awake, because deep down, most people already know the answer. They know where they've betrayed themselves. They know where they've stayed silent. They know where they've accepted less than they deserved. They know where fear made their decisions. And that awareness can feel painful, but it can also become the beginning of freedom. Because freedom begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. The moment you admit, I've been giving away too much power. I've been allowing other people to define me. I've been waiting for permission. And then something changes. Not overnight, but gradually you begin reclaiming pieces of yourself. A boundary here. A difficult conversation there. A decision made from courage instead of fear. Small acts, but powerful ones. Because confidence isn't built through giant leaps. It's built through repeated acts of self-respect. Every time you honor your values, confidence grows. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, confidence grows. Every time you stop abandoning yourself, confidence grows. And eventually, you become someone different. Not because the world changed, because you changed. There's a story about an elephant that perfectly illustrates this. When elephants are young, trainers tie them to a small wooden stake. The baby elephant pulls, struggles, fights, but it's not strong enough. Eventually, it gives up. Years pass, the elephant grows enormous, powerful enough to uproot trees, strong enough to destroy the stake in seconds. But it doesn't try. Why? Because it still believes it's powerless. Its body grew. Its mind didn't. Now think about how many people live exactly this way. Years ago, someone rejected them. So they stopped taking risks. Years ago, someone mocked them. So they stopped speaking up. Years ago, someone doubted them. So they stopped believing in themselves. The stake is gone. But the belief remains. And beliefs are powerful, more powerful than reality sometimes, because people don't live according to what is true. They often live according to what they believe is true. If you believe you're weak, you act weak. If you believe you're unworthy, you tolerate less. If you believe you need approval, you become controlled by it. That's why one of the greatest acts of self-respect is questioning old beliefs. Ask yourself, who taught me this? Is it actually true? Or have I simply repeated it so many times that it feels true? Maybe you're stronger than you think. Maybe you're more capable than you think. Maybe the person controlling your life isn't your boss, or your family, or society. Maybe it's an outdated story inside your own head, and if that's true, you have the power to rewrite it. Every powerful transformation begins with a new story. The story changes from, "I need everyone to like me," to, "I need to respect myself," from, "I'm afraid of being judged," to, "I'm tired of judging myself," from, "I don't want to disappoint others," to, "I refuse to keep disappointing myself." That shift changes everything, because self-respect creates a different kind of energy, an energy people notice immediately. Not because you become louder, because you become calmer. You stop chasing, you stop proving, you stop performing, you stop begging for validation. And ironically, that's often when respect arrives. Because respect follows authenticity, not desperation. Think about the most respected people you've ever met. Were they obsessed with being liked? Usually not. Were they constantly seeking approval? Usually not. They simply lived according to their principles. And principles are powerful, because principles remain steady when emotions fluctuate. Anyone can be confident on a good day. Anyone can feel strong when life is easy. But character reveals itself during pressure, when people disagree with you, when opportunities disappear, when criticism arrives. When loneliness appears, that's where self-respect is tested. And that's where many people surrender. Not because they're weak, because they're afraid. Afraid of standing alone. Afraid of losing relationships. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of rejection. But here's a truth that changes lives. Being rejected for who you are is far less painful than being accepted for who you're pretending to be. Think about that. Imagine spending years pretending to agree, pretending to fit in, pretending to be someone you're not. And everyone loves that version. Everyone approves. Everyone accepts. But deep down, you know they don't actually know you. They know the performance, not the person. That kind of acceptance is empty because it requires constant maintenance, constant acting, constant exhaustion. Eventually you become tired, very tired, tired of pretending, tired of pleasing, tired of performing. And that's when self-respect enters your life like a breath of fresh air. Because self-respect says you don't have to earn your worth. You don't have to audition for love. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't have to carry everyone's expectations. And hearing those truths feels liberating. Because most people have spent years carrying invisible weight. Weight they were never meant to carry: the expectation to be perfect, the expectation to satisfy everyone, the expectation to never fail, the expectation to never disappoint anyone. Impossible standards. Standards that guarantee suffering because no matter how hard you try, someone will misunderstand you, someone will criticize you, someone will dislike you, someone will disagree with you. That is part of life. And once you accept that, something beautiful happens. You stop trying to control other people's opinions and start controlling your own actions, because that is where your real power exists. Not in controlling others, in mastering yourself, your reactions, your choices, your mindset, your standards, your boundaries, your focus. That is power, real power, the kind nobody can take away. Money can disappear, status can disappear, relationships can change, opportunities can vanish, but self-respect remains. And when everything else falls apart, self-respect becomes your anchor. The voice that says, "I will be okay. I trust myself. I can handle this. I refuse to abandon myself. That voice is priceless because life will test you again and again. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Mistakes will happen. You will have moments where doubt tries to return, moments where fear whispers in your ear, moments where old habits try to reclaim control. And in those moments, you must remember something. The goal is not to become fearless. The goal is to become stronger than your fear. The goal is not to avoid criticism. The goal is to stop being controlled by it. The goal is not to make everyone respect you. The goal is to respect yourself so deeply that you no longer depend on their approval. That is freedom. And freedom changes everything. Imagine waking up tomorrow and no longer feeling the need to prove yourself. No longer obsessing over every opinion, no longer replaying every criticism, no longer shrinking your dreams, no longer apologizing for existing. Imagine how much energy would return to your life, how much peace, how much confidence, how much focus. That version of you already exists. It's not someone you become. It's someone you uncover, someone hidden beneath years of fear, years of conditioning, years of people-pleasing, years of self-doubt. And today can be the day you begin uncovering that person. Not tomorrow, not next year, today. Because every day you allow others to control your emotions, you give away a piece of your life. And life is too precious for that. Too short, too valuable, too meaningful. One day, your story will end. One day, the opportunities will stop. One day, the clock will run out. And when that day arrives, the opinions that once controlled you won't matter. The criticism won't matter. The approval won't matter. The fear won't matter. What will matter is whether you had the courage to be yourself, whether you honored your values, whether you protected your peace, whether you respected the person staring back at you in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. Protect it, strengthen it, honor it, and never trade it away for temporary approval. The moment you stop letting others define your worth, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Calm, focused, independent, unshakable. Not because life became easy, but because you finally realized something powerful. Your value was never in their hands. It never was. It was always in yours. And the moment you truly understand that, no one can control you again. End.